Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the most must-see NJSSL podcast. Welcome to The Cutting Reg. As usual, I am your host, Reg, and we are going to be joined today by two members of the top team in the NJSSL, the NJSSL Titans. We're going to welcome first the head coach of that team, who is not ZJ, for the record. It's actually brother Awn Abbas, who's going to join us shortly, and we're also going to be joined by the one, the only, the professor. These are two Titans on the Titans, who have made big, huge plays every game. Awn has probably had his best game to date against us, the Chiefs, and the professor also had his best game to date this season against the Chiefs. It was one heck of a game. They're going to be happy to tell you all about it. But first, let's welcome Awn Abbas.
Raj, how's it going?
Good. How's it going for you, Awn Abbas? Assalamu alaikum.
Good man, like Islam doing.
Do you hear that clapping?
I do. Yeah.
That clapping is for you. So we are live and we're recording now. So welcome to the show. I'm excited to hear all the takes that you're gonna have. Professor should be joining us shortly, but we're gonna start without him. So I guess what we're gonna do is we're gonna recap this past week and then we're gonna do a preview for the next week. Does that sound good to you?
Sounds good, Raj. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Well, I figured the first game we'll talk about will be our game, the Chiefs and the Titans. And, I have a lot I could say, but I'll let you take the floor. Tell me what was the Titans' strategy going into the game? And I'm sure it must have, worked the way you guys wanted it to.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds good. I was kind of hoping to hear your thoughts first on this game, to be honest, but all good. I don't mind going first.
Okay, go for it.
Yeah, I'd actually love for Professor to have joined us as well. Hopefully he'll be joining soon so he can provide his take as well.
For sure.
He was a big part of the game. But yeah, I mean, I think so as for the game, overall, I think early on, obviously, it was a little bit of, back and forth. Both teams are scoring kind of, back to back, and it was a close game. I think defensively, we made some adjustments. We actually switched over from zone to man. And once we made that switch, we didn't let up any more points from that point forward. Offensively, I think sort of had our way with the Chiefs for the most part throughout the game. And I think more so than anything from the Chiefs part, I think more than anything else that just speaks volumes to the amount of depth that we have on our team, especially given the fact that we had Ithaza and HK out, two of our top receivers. We had other guys step up. We had obviously, huge games from Professor, from Bessel, even under the radar guys. Nucky, myself, guys stepped up, played a big role, and obviously with ZJ, with him, in my opinion, being the best QB, in the league, obviously like he's gonna increase the level of play of all the guys around him. So with him at QB, you can never, count any team out. But honestly, I have the utmost confidence in our team, and I think all of us do. And no matter who's in, who's out on any given week, we expect to win. And I think we all have the confidence in each other, and I think that's what makes us the team that we are.
Yeah, I will say that most of the players that I've talked to at this point in the NJSSL have the Titans as their as the team to beat, and rightfully so. You guys have kind of week in week out demonstrated, regardless of who's there, how strong of a team you are, and I think that goes definitely to the players on the team. But a lot of that credit also I think goes to ZJ, who I think, like you said, elevates the players that he plays with. And I think that that's such a huge part of why the Titans are so successful. I mean, from our standpoint from my standpoint for the game, I think that like I said, ZJ made a lot of guys look good. I think Professor is another person to talk about. Like was very underrated. Like we obviously underrated him. We had two different guys on him at one point that both let him get touchdowns, and one who did hold him in check for a little bit, but then got hurt. And I think that injuries in that game was pretty big for us too, which is I think part of our struggle, especially in that second half, which where the games kind of went by, is that Hussein got hurt a couple of times, Ashik Pai got hurt. This upcoming week, Imtiaz, Ashik, and Zaki are all. And Hussein are all basically sitting out because of the injuries. So I think that was huge. The two other guys I'll just point out, pretty much all offensively, all the receivers contributed. Basil had a few good catches and a couple for touchdowns. And then Akbar on your defensive line, he played really well. I had to play a line on him a couple of times, and I was just impressed with how fast and how kind of strong he's gotten too. So I think that's for a guy who was picked so late in the draft, he's definitely demonstrating that he's a potential top lineman at least this season.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, and I did forget to mention our O line and D line as well. Can't forget those guys.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But that's enough of our game. I'm sure we don't need to talk about that anymore. But maybe let's go into the Bucks and the Bengals game. I'm not sure if you got a chance to look at this game at all, but if you did, I'm happy to hear your takes on it.
Yeah, so I actually, I mean, got the notice for this the podcast pretty late, so I have not
That's
watched the
fair.
game. Otherwise I would have gone back and watched it. But yeah, I do know that Taha was out, I believe, for the Bengals
Mm-hmm.
last week, and so that obviously, I'm sure affected them, their offense.
Mm-hmm.
It still was a relatively close game, so I give them credit for battling and hanging in there. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So no, I was gonna say let me throw a couple of statistics at you. So the big takeaway from this game from the Bengals standpoint is Rayur went absolutely nuts and had three interceptions in this game. He was also starting quarterback, had one
Right.
touchdown, but threw two interceptions himself. And also caught a touchdown too. So he was
Wow.
really stepped up in the absence of both Taha and Qasim. From an offensive standpoint and defensive standpoint, he was essentially the top guy. Just the other thing to point out for the Bengals is that Faison Sayed, who's usually an afterthought, all things considered, no offense, Faison, is that he got four tackles in this game as well. So I'm not sure what was happening. Like I didn't watch this game fully either, but I think those were the impressive things from the Buccaneers standpoint. On Merchant, 10 of 18, had three interceptions, no touchdowns as a passing, but this team had three rushing touchdowns, and that looks to be basically what was the big difference in this game is that they the Bengals couldn't stop their run. They had their pass in check, but they couldn't stop their run. So I think that's basically was the biggest key here. And with that being said, I think have you played either of these teams yet?
We have not. We have the Bengals coming up this week.
Okay, all right, and so I think they're 1-2 now. They're going to definitely want to get at least make it to 500. So they'll probably be looking to have a better week this week. They'll have hopefully most of their guys, and hopefully that'll help them. But I don't know. You might know more about that.
Yeah, so I don't want to jump too far ahead. I'm sure later on in the podcast we'll talk about predictions, but yeah, they don't have all their guys. They actually have a handful of guys missing, which is
Okay.
unfortunate, yeah, for them. But I Razabhai, will have his team ready. He's a great captain, great coach. I played with him, with the Raptors. He's a tremendous motivator, both pregame and during the game. So I know he'll have his team ready no matter who's there.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, I mean, if Liu is there, then he's the guy that you got to watch out for. You got to put. And I was actually, I mean, I'll say this. We'll talk about it later, but he's definitely the guy to watch out for on that team. All right, we'll move on then. The final score in that game, I'll just say, was 30-20. It looks like in favor of the Bucks, who I also underrated them pretty early on in the season too, but they're 2-1 right now. So congrats to them. Let's move on to a game that I do know that you'll be able to talk about is the Eagles and Jaguars. I guess we can be a little bit. Let's not damage the Jaguars too much. They're going through a rough patch right now. But we were both able to referee this game, so I know you'll have some thoughts on it. But what did you think of this game?
Yeah, so the Eagles, obviously, I mean, I think everyone knows by now, like they're a great team. They have a ton of speed on that team. Farhan, obviously, similar to ZJ, he also elevates the play of the rest of the guys around him. So it can never count out a team with Farhan. He has this year team with, like I said, guys with a lot of speed, and I think
Hmm.
that showed against the Jaguars. I think for this game, for the Jaguars, the first 2 weeks, I think, in regards to their QB Shazan, he played better than a lot of people, including myself, expected. And I think the first couple weeks, was on a lot of the other guys. This week, Shazan started out not so great. He threw a few picks, and then he ended up getting injured. Once he got injured, at that point forward, it just got ugly. Just anyone that they put in at QB, we all saw kind of what happened. It's unfortunate, but honestly, the Jaguars, I will say, look, they have a lot of talent. They, I'm really hoping that this bye week, that they use this bye week to really, hopefully, come together as a team. Work some things out. Hopefully, use it as kind of a refresher and just start fresh this upcoming week.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm pulling for them.
hopefully.
I'm hoping that they can really pull it together. Like I said, they do have a lot of talent, so we'll see what happens.
And they're playing the Ravens this week, who are also on 3. So this would be the week for them to kind of get things in shape. It was a rough match for them. I mean, the Eagles were basically in control most of the match, and it was pretty much one sided. Unfortunately, we'll talk about the Eagles and how great they played. Shojab Uncle got a pick six. Nobody probably saw that coming at any point in this league, but congratulations to him. That definitely puts him on the board for for some sort of defensive
Yeah.
title or trophy or something.
I think
Farhan,
most
as
guys.
usual,
I'm
yeah.
sorry. I think most guys
No,
on
no,
the
go ahead,
Eagles,
good.
two guys on the Eagles had pick sixes, then didn't in that game.
That's
So
that's true. That's true. I think in that game there was 3 total, 2 of them from Mustafa Hassan. And actually, I'm gonna take this moment to talk about Mustafa Hassan and the Eagles in general. What I've noticed about this team is that the Eagles are very much, and I don't know if you, I don't think you ever watched this show because it's probably after your time, but there's a show called the Teen Titans, and the Eagles are basically the Teen Titans with Farhan as Robin, like the main guy. He's kind of like the leader of the team, and I feel like Faisal was supposed to be the number 2 guy, which would be Cyborg, but the number 2 guy is definitely Mustafa Hassan. He's the one who every week basically, will have your like almost most catches, most yards, most defensive plays. He had 2 defensive touchdowns in this game. And Faisal is actually the comic relief guy. He's Beast Boy. That's what I've learned, is that he's mostly just comic relief on this team. And then I don't know. I guess the last Starfire would be like Rehan, and then Raven would be El Yabed, because they both have no personality. But that's neither here nor there. But anyways, so I think that that's like the most analogous team that I can see here, and they're going to go far. Clearly, the Eagles, they're on a strong path right now. They're also 2-1, so they're looking to go up to 3-1 this week. In their game this week. But we'll get to that. And just to round it off, let's talk about the Ravens and the Lions. I don't know. You might not have been able to catch too much of this. I talked about this with Mehdi in the other podcast. The Lions and the Ravens, it was actually a very close game. It was pretty much battling up until the end. And the final score was 21-20 is what it looks like, in favor of the Lions. With just like, I think Wally was about to hit a game-winning field goal, but a delay of game at that moment basically pushed him too far back, and they weren't able to do it. It was a very tight game. There was a lot of unsportsmanlike conduct that was in this game, and so I think that also is what did it for the Ravens. So the Ravens are 0-3 right now. I think if they are looking to get their first win, they got to keep the sportsmanlike conduct in mind. Do you have any thoughts on this game at all, or did you?
yeah, so I did not get a chance to watch this game either, but I have heard a lot about all the controversies of the game, especially in regards to the replacement refs.
Mm,
So I do think, obviously it was a close game, and I give the Ravens a lot of credit for battling, especially with Uzair out. I think, and obviously with the Lions being one of the top teams.
hmm
But yeah, I think that the the Ravens, I do know that there's some frustration on their part with some of the calls and some of the, not necessarily even the calls, but just the overall refing and the sort of issues that we had with the replacement refs. And I think I can completely understand their frustration, and I do feel for them because it's really tough to lose that way. But at the end of the day, the Lions did pull it out. The Lions are a really, really, really good, tough team. Um, preseason, I know a lot of people may not have had them up there. In my personal preseason rankings were um, obviously Titans won, but I had the Lions 2 and Eagles 3. So I will, give myself kudos for
Anda,
that.
you were on fire with your preseason
I
rankings,
don't want to. I
man.
don't want to jinx myself. Knock on wood. Hopefully the
It's still
Titans
early.
still.
It's still early.
It is still very early. But getting back to the Lions, I mean, Mehdi picked an. He drafted an amazing team. I think that they still are, even though they're undefeated. I think they still have room for improvement. Believe it or not, I think that they still have guys that they haven't figured out how to use to their full potential. For example, a guy like AJ, Ali Musfi, I had expected more from him. I think they just haven't. They have a deep team just like the Titans do. They just probably haven't had the chance, but. I think there's room for improvement there. I think that as the season goes along and they build more and more chemistry together, I think they're just going to get better.
And actually, on that note, that's perfect that you talk about chemistry because in this game, I think that they did an excellent job of spreading the ball around, and even defensively, like everyone that played contributed. There's at least one tackle basically from everybody on the team. Ali Musavi had actually had the most catches in this game. This was kind of like his breakout game: 4 catches, 36 yards. Adi was the other top receiver, 4 catches, 35 yards, and a touchdown. So I think the one thing that's really strong about the Lions and Ali Shah in particular is similar to ZJ. He gets his entire team involved and elevates the guys that are on his team. So I think the clash of the Titans, pun intended, is the Lions Titans game, and I'm looking forward to seeing that when we get there.
Yeah.
But with that being said, let's move to the preview portion of the podcast. We have 4 games this week. I guess we'll start off just I guess in the order I have it is with the Chiefs and the Buccaneers as the first game. Ampa, what are your big hits for like both teams? Like what do they need to do to win the game?
Yeah, so honestly, for you guys, for the Chiefs, I mean, like it's going to be tough. Just to be
Yeah,
completely honest,
it's
especially
going to be
with
very tough.
yeah, with the guys that you guys have out. I think the you guys are another team that I feel like has talent, but just haven't put everything together yet. I think you guys haven't. You guys have one of the best, if not the not necessarily the best, but the most talented, at least physically, guy in the league, in Hussein. And I think you guys haven't really necessarily figured out how to fully utilize him yet. But obviously, this game it doesn't matter because I think you mentioned he's going to be out anyway.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's going to be tough. I think you guys, the Chiefs, do have a shot, just given the fact that at least early on in the season, on Merchant has seems to be turnover prone or has the ability to to throw some picks. So you
Yeah.
guys maybe have some opportunities there. But I think overall it is going to be tough, just because the Bucks have shown, um, you know, just like all the other teams, the Bucks are quite talented as well, and they've shown to have one of the better defenses I think in the league and a really good pass rush. Russell Merchant, a guy who's a little bit under the radar, is having a really great season in regards to pass rushing. You mentioned the Bucks, their running game, earlier. I think that's a strong suit for them as well. So yeah, I got to go with the Bucks here. Unfortunate for the Chiefs.
No, that's okay. I would also I'm probably also going with the Bucks here. So like you said, so the big things I think for the Chiefs is you have to capitalize on the fact that their quarterback has been very turnover prone. He pretty much averages 3 interceptions a game, and we need to basically capitalize on that. The 2 games that the Bucks won is that they scored 3 touchdowns by rushing in this last game, and 2 touchdowns as like pick sixes in the game before that, and another rushing touchdown. So
Right.
really, it's their rush that we need to stop. And then certainly we can't throw picks now. we may not have our quarterback for the entire game, so that might be an issue for our standpoint. Really, I think for the Bucks, they just need to capitalize on the fact that we're missing so many guys. Like Hosan's out, Zan's going to be out for the second half. Imtiaz is out. Ashikwa is like a maybe. Zucky is out, so it's just a lot of guys that are out. So that definitely might come and get us. But we'll do what we can. I mean, the you had mentioned that Razan Merchant I'll point out that he's actually the sack leader right now, with 5 sacks on the season. The Miz is right behind him though with 4, so we gotta just capitalize on that and hopefully force On to throw some interceptions, and we'll see what
Absolutely.
happens.
And Reg, man, you gotta step up with all the guys out, man. You gotta have confidence
I
and
know, I know. Well, hey, you know what? I mean, if we don't have a quarterback in the second half, I might just have to step into that role. We'll
there
see what
you go.
happens.
There you go. Okay.
But no. But I have faith in our team to at least keep it close. And we look forward to at least putting up a good fight. Maybe get them in their heads and capitalize and secure the victory that way. Let's talk about the Lions and the Eagles. This is going to be almost a very I guess clash of the animals games, I guess. But what do you think is going to be the big takeaways for this one?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a great game. It's two of the top teams. It'll be really interesting to see what the outcome is. Um, this is a tough one to pick. I would say I am going to give the edge to the Lions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think it'll be a close game. The Eagles, especially after coming off of last week, I'm sure their confidence is sky high right now. Obviously with Farhan, can never count him out. Like as we mentioned earlier, they have a really, really fast team, a lot of speedy guys on their team. I just think the Lions, they have a very balanced team. There's no glaring weakness on that team. Whether it's line receivers, they also have a really deep team. I think as long as Ali Shah doesn't turn the ball over, as long as he doesn't make too many mistakes, I think the Lions, will pull it out. I think by week 4, I think, like I mentioned earlier, they're still building that chemistry. I think they'll probably, hopefully, take another, step up as well.
Yeah.
But really, it should be a really good game. Looking forward to seeing how it comes out.
Yeah, I think I like to call this game the battle of the MVPs because I think both Farhan and Alicia are MVP caliber guys. I think I'm also going to go with the Lions, but honestly, it could go either way. I think Lions are one of the few teams that are able to match speed with the Eagles, and I think that that's going to be a big setback for the Eagles, and they might not be able to adjust as well. I mean, certainly, I think Farhan's probably the fastest guy in that game, but the Eagles, I think, have a lot of fast guys between Zaman and Adi and Abbas Nathani. Like, I think, the Lions, will be able to match up with their Mustafa and their Farhan and their Rehan. So I think that they'll be able to put up with them, and I think they're going to come out on top.
Absolutely.
All right, let's talk about the Ravens and the Jaguars. So what do you think is going to happen here? The battle of the 0-3s.
Yeah, so this is another it's an interesting one. I mean, I'm gonna go with the Ravens here. Just because so I think the Ravens honestly they are 0-3, but I believe if I'm not mistaken, all of their losses have been, one score games, if I'm not mistaken. So they easily could have a much different record than 0-3. Um, Again, just like a lot of the other teams, I think they have the talent. I do think they're a little bit weak on the line. But I think, if they can figure out how to deal with the pass rush with their weak O line, then I think they have a lot of potential there. Um, Again, as I mentioned earlier, for the Jags, hopefully they use the bye week to kind of regroup and really game plan and come together as a team. And hopefully we'll see a good effort from them. I'm hoping that at least it'll be a good game. But until I see that from the Jags, I mean, I have to go with the Ravens here.
No, that's fair, and I basically have the same take. I think that the Jags. I'm hoping that they utilize the week to kind of figure out a game plan. But last when Shazan went down last week, they tried almost everyone at quarterback.
Yeah.
One of the people I'll just point out, I don't think this is going to be their game plan at all, but one person who they didn't have as quarterback, who historically did play quarterback in his younger years, was Monu. And so, I would be interested to see if they actually go to that. I mean, the question will be who would their line be. I guess it would have to be like Asad, MMA, and Irtaza. But yeah, I also don't think that Munu's mobile enough in this league to be like a solid quarterback. So I think that that's going to get them. So we'll see. Hopefully they'll be able to do it. But I think that the Ravens are just going to outplay them in most ways, and it'll probably be one sided because I've yet to see evidence that it's going to be anything else.
Agreed.
And I guess let's round it off with the one that you, well, I'm sure, are excited to talk about: the Bengals and the Titans. What have you got on this one?
I mean, I'm not gonna say much, honestly. I think you know my prediction on this one.
Of
But
course.
I'll just echo what I had said earlier about the Bengals, and that they, it's an unfortunately for them, they do have a few guys out tomorrow. But like I said, Rozabai, he's an excellent coach, and he's an excellent motivator. I played with him on the Raptors, and so I know that he's gonna have his team ready. Like no matter who's in, who's out, he'll have his guys ready to go. Hopefully looking forward to a good competitive game. But I have the utmost confidence in my guys to pull it out.
Hey, that's the way to do it. That's what the captain's got to do. He's got to have full faith in his team. I will also go with the Titans on the Titans on this one. I think that regardless of who's there for the Bengals, I think that the Titans just outmatch this team, especially based on what I've seen, just kind of from the Bengals. I think Taha's has been a step down from last season. Goslin's been a step down since last season, and ZJ has made all of your team like pretty dominant. I will say that the one thing that I think has the Bengals have to do if they want any chance of keeping alive in this is Zayur or Taha has to be the guy covering Professor. Nobody else on that team should be covering Professor. I said it a few times in our games, like that I wanted to put like Zan Mumtaz on him, like basically one of our more top guys. But we
Absolutely.
didn't go down that route, and it cost us. He scored at 3 receiving touchdowns.
Or
Um,
Hussein, you guys could have put Hussein on him. You guys
yeah, yeah.
I feel like at some point teams may need to start doubling him, which I'm kind of hoping for because that'll open up the
That'll
game for
leave somebody else open. Yeah, for
uh,
sure.
but yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, teams have to account for Professor, no matter where, what position he's playing.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But that pretty much rounds it up. I mean, I guess it should be a great set of games tomorrow. I'm hoping that at least some of them will be close. But hey, you never know what happens in this league. All right, Onpay, I guess. Well, just as a kind of way to finish it off, like we've talked about a few. I know that you think that the Titans are going to be the champions by the end of this. Let's talk about defense because I mentioned Akbar Rizvi on your team
Yep.
is in second place, tied with Miz and Nabil for sacks.
Yep.
Let's talk about who you think is going to be the defensive player of the year at this point in the season. Any thoughts on that whatsoever?
That is a tough one just because it's so early, and honestly, I haven't given too much thought to it just yet. I think just off the top of my head, I would say Ali Shah is a pretty high candidate right now, just because I believe he's up there in
He's up
interceptions.
there in
He's the leader.
interceptions.
I don't know if he's first, but is he?
So he's second. Faisal Ali is actually first on the Eagles.
Okay, well, that's
And
because
then
of this past week's game against the
right,
Jags.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think Shaw, just based on, I haven't seen all their games, but based on what I have seen, and obviously based on the stats, it looks like he's a candidate for defensive player of the year, just with his cornerback play. I'm trying to think of who else off the top of my head. I mean,
So one person I'll just again throwing out from your team is Nahi has made a lot of great
yes,
flagpoles, and
yes,
he's actually tied for third in tackles with Shubber. Shubber, Mohsen Bungish, and Wally are the only guys above him. So I mean, maybe tackles alone isn't enough to put you at the top of the defensive player of the year board, but it's something to keep in mind.
yeah, no, absolutely. And I wanted to mention him. I didn't because I don't want to boast my team up, too much and just
That's
try
fair.
to kind of give props to my guys. But no, absolutely, and thank you for calling him out on that. I will say, like, obviously tackles are not, the it's not a flashy stat. It's not an interception or a sack.
Yeah,
But in terms of just a guy that just doesn't, miss tackles, a guy that's first of all, he's underrated, under the radar. He was
underappreciated.
underappreciated, picked pretty, I wouldn't say low in the draft, but middle of the draft. But the guy is everywhere on the field, and just doesn't if a guy is near him, he doesn't let him go by. So he's a really solid tackler. He doesn't miss flagpoles. Again, knock on wood. Hopefully this continues, but
I don't
he's
have as
been
much
he's
knock on.
been fantastic. And a lot of times that like you said, goes unnoticed or underappreciated. But certainly on the Titans, like all of us have pointed it out, and encouraged all of our guys. And he's not the only one on our guy, but on our team. Sorry, but he's definitely someone who's up there as a solid guy in terms of tackles for sure.
He absolutely is, and I think it wouldn't be a surprise if we see the professor getting offensive player of the year with him leading receiving 9 receptions, 4 touchdowns, 170 yards. Professor drafted very late, but definitely showing that he's a top guy.
Absolutely, and I'll just mention real quick. I mean, you since you mentioned MVP candidates, a couple times earlier, I
Yeah,
can't forget about ZJ. To me, he is the MVP, but obviously, that remains to be seen. But can't count him out. To me, he's the top guy. He has to be it. I think just a lot of guys on our team have a lot of individual awards can be given to a lot of the guys on our team, but what I will say is that our goal, honestly, is championship or bust. None of the other stuff matters really.
for sure.
It's nice to get that recognition as with the individual awards, but at the end of the day, it's the championship that we're after.
For sure, for sure. Well, Ampe, we're getting close to the end here, so I very much appreciate your time and your absolutely incredible insight on the league in this podcast.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely have to make you a recurring member of the podcast at some point in the future.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you again for joining, and we hope all of you enjoyed it at home. If you have any thoughts, comments, concerns, any thing that you'd like to add, definitely reach out to me, and we can either get you on the podcast or bring up anything that you have in mind. But with all that being said, we hope you have a great rest of your night or day, whenever it is when you watch this. And we look forward to seeing you tomorrow. With that being said, wa alaikum
Take
salam,
care.
everyone. Take care. Take care, Amba.